Okay, so good morning, everyone. I believe we can get started. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so let's get started with probably some system issues that we deal with information retrieval. So, so far in the last class, we discussed about the evaluation, how your uh, document that you have retrieved is correct or not. I mean, the ranking method that you have used is accurately giving result or not, right? So today we are talking about more on the system issues that you face while using any information retrieval based system. So a quick background. Well, it's fine. Okay, so as we have discussed, like scoring computation is a kind of a large fraction of CPU work on a given query, because for a given query, ideally you need to look at all the documents by matching them, whatever the query representation, vector representation you have for the query, and same for the document. Ideally, you need to match all of them and get probably the top result for that, right? So in a way, this is basically take immensely large amount of time, and for CPU for a given query, so that basically may not be realistic in case of real-time information retrieval based system, because generally we have like tight budget of latency. So what I mean that for a given query, you want to get the result in real time. So 25 to 50 millisecond is something you are fine with this, all right? So CPU provisioning doesn't basically permit exhaustively scoring every document on every query. So because since it is going to take a lot of time, you cannot basically compare with all. So what are the other system implementation you can think of in order to speed this up? How about, I mean, you get the uh, top case, say for example documents that for a given query which basically uh, address the information need that you have. So ideally what we are willing to do here, we want to basically want to have like top k document, uh, so that basically you will get uh, you will get in response to the given query that you have. So today we'll be looking into what are the ways we can cut down the CPU uses for scoring without compromising the quality of the result much. When I say much, it means, I mean, there may be some loss, there may be probably some compromise in the uh, result, because there is some trade-off you need to do, right? If you want to cut down processing in a way, I mean, in order to get the result very fast, you may probably miss, or probably you may probably lose some document which might be interesting. So this is something we'll be studying today. So before we start, let me briefly define what is safe versus non-safe ranking. The terminology safe ranking is referred to a method that guarantee that the K document that we are returning for a given query are the absolutely they are basically the absolute high scoring documents. In a way, I mean, uh, if you're returning K document, so these are the topmost K document that you have, having probably the highest cosine similarity, if you're using cosine similarity as a similarity metric, right? So if there are any document probably which are missed in this top K document, it means it is not safe. So as a query, I mean, what do you think? I mean, when you're building a information retrieval based system, is it fine to be having a non-safe ranking? Anyone? How it will affect the uh, whole information retrieval based system that you have? Any comment?
So if it is non-safe, like can't be sure of the system itself. So at some point we need like a metric that says that the document is written.
Mhm.
So for that reason, we need a safe ranking. Like that is our purpose, the goal of information retrieval, I think.
Yeah, but if you recall, I mean, again, so let me get back to the previous courses, previous classes, right? When we say that if some process takes a lot of time, or probably if something basically it's difficult to solve, what you do some kind of approximation, right? So I understand, like, safe is good, safe is basically the best to have, but you are achieving safe at what cost, right? So at least I understand, I mean, in some case, I mean, if it is probably very sensitive, I mean, you cannot compromise with probably the safe ranking. But if it is not that much sensitive and you are able to probably return the K documents, which are kind of, I mean, very similar to the maybe the top K documents, or probably it may have probably many top K document, but probably it may also have some false positive document that may not uh, belong to the top K, but still very close to that. Do you think it is fine to have in information retrieval? If it is, if this trade-off that you are introducing somehow improve the overall system there, overall system in terms of, say, for example, making it fast. That is the, I mean, the one criteria that we are discussing now. I mean, what do you think about it? Anyone? Okay, so I think it should be okay, right? It should be okay, because here basically what you are willing to do, you are basically, the ranking function is just a here proxy, right? Because ultimately what, as part of the information retrieval system, what you want to do, you want to if you recall the evaluation lecture last, in the last class, what we have discussed, we want to keep the user happy in terms of whatever the information need the person has, we need to probably provide the respective information in terms of document, so that, I mean, it addresses the need of the user. So if we can have something like, suppose you have a user has a task and probably the query formulation, so you have basically the ranking function that matches the document to the query. If it is exact match, that is perfect. If it is not, I mean, if it is close to the top document that you, that is also okay. So that is the proxy, you can say, the have in terms of ranking function. And this ranking function can be modified in such a way that if we can get a list of K document close to the top K by the some changes, I think it should be okay, right? Because that may lead you to probably very fast retrieval result as compared to probably earlier, which when you are going to process all the doc. Because especially in the case of web scale data, you know, I mean, you have huge amount of data. If you're going to compare a query for all the document that you have, it is, I mean, nearly impossible to probably get the result in the real time. I mean, especially the 250 millisecond that we're talking about, right? And or probably in order to achieve that, you need to probably put a very highly costly, probably the server infrastructure, that again may not be the cost effective. So given all these trade-off, I mean, it should be okay. It should be okay to basically, yeah, so choose the top K documents which are similar to the highest K document that you should get in the ideal case. So just quick recap. So we represented query as a vector as well. So in that case, so do the same for the queries that we are doing in the vector space, get the vector for the queries. And as the next step, basically you can rank the document according to their proximity to the query in the space. And if you recall how we have computed the proximity, so that you can do in terms of, say, for example, cosine similarity. So you have the different vectors, so you can compute the cosine similarity and get it done. So in the real, in basically the ideal case, for a given query, you need to compute this cosine similarity for or you can say this proximity for all the documents. But I just said it basically takes a huge amount of time. I mean, it may not be probably uh, feasible in the real time. Right? So what are the things you can think of in order to speed this up? So we need to think of some efficient cosine ranking. So what you need to do in that case, you need to basically find the k docs in the collection nearest to the query. So it so that you have the k largest query document cosines, and you can just select. And how you can efficiently ranking? So computing a single cosine efficiently, as well as choosing the probably the k largest cosine value efficiently. How you can basically select the k largest cosine values efficiently, given that suppose there is n document in your database, right? Can you compute this k largest cosines values efficiently without computing all those n cosines? Is it possible? Anyone? Okay, so it seems okay. So let me answer. So in
So,
that case, yeah. So definitely, yes. So someone who want to answer?
so like we can hash these vectors somehow so that by some similarity measure, like similar vectors will go into the same bucket, and then we do cosine computation only among those.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. So that is something we need to. That is something we need to do in order to probably get the, you can say, the similar document, right? Or probably the approximation of that, right? So here basically we want to find probably the k largest cosine value for the given n document. So we need to find some ways through which basically we can get the top k. So one possibility could be you just use some kind of selection. So how you can select? So typically we want to retrieve the top k documents, right? So you can rank in order to cosine similarity values they have. So in this case, how about using heap? Can you use heap to do so, right? Because if you have, suppose you have the cosine numbers for all. So suppose j is the number of documents having non-zero cosines, because there may be some documents which probably very different. I mean, completely different than the query, so their cosine similarity will be zero, right? So for example, suppose you have j number of documents which have non-zero cosine similarity. So now you need to rank these non-zero cosines to get the top k of these. So one possibility could be you can simply use heap, right? So it's a binary tree where basically each node will be having the values greater than probably its children. So you can basically perform 2j operation to construct the heap, and then probably each k winners you can read off in 2 log j steps. So it's a heap, a normal heap that you use. In this case, you can basically, in this way, you can get the top k. But again, in that case, you need to compute the cosine similarity for all the documents, right? So bottleneck is primarily computational bottleneck in scoring, like cosine computation for all. Can we avoid all this computation? Because as you know that for a given query, or even any query, right? If we have probably a billions of document, of course, not all billions of document may have high, even I mean, if I compute the non-zero cosine similarity, probably, I mean, for example, out of 1 billion, say probably 0.75 billion documents still have non-zero cosine similarity. That's again a huge number. Is there any way to somehow reduce this computation? Right? Is it because if you are able to somehow reduce this computation, in that case, I mean, we don't need to compute the cosine similarity for all documents you have. Is there any way to prune this? Is there any way to discard some of the documents even before computing the cosine similarity? So this is something uh, we are going to study today. I mean, how we can do so. So here basically the idea is, so a document in the top k may probably creep into the list of key documents later. So as we said, I mean, it should be okay, right? I mean, if it is fine, if we somehow, in order to avoid all this computation, if we miss out some document, I think it should be okay. So this is something we are willing to achieve. So how you can speed up this cosine computation? As I said, you need to do some kind of pruning. you need to some kind of discarding of some of the document even before computing, probably computing the cosine similarity. So one generic approach could be, how about you just create a set of contenders. So something a contender will be basically a much smaller subset of the whole document you have. So n is the whole set of document that you have, is the subset that you are considering, which is very smaller than as compared to n, and k is the minimum number of, you can say, the document you want to return. So this should be probably bigger than this, because you may probably miss out some document or discard some of the document from here. So the possibility is find a set of A of contenders such that its size is greater than the minimum number of document that you want to return and much smaller than n. What are the things you need to consider in mind while selecting this? Any guess?
It should have at least some relevant documents.
Okay, very nice. Yeah, so in fact, yeah, so that is true. And another thing could be, I mean, we need to choose this A in such a way that is, you can say, not, you can say, the biased, or probably it should be a good representation of overall document that you have, and it should be relevant, as you rightly mentioned, based on the some criteria that you choose. So that criteria, I mean, we need to think of. So we'll be discussing later in this class what are the things we can do. So
Could
here
you
basically
explain the biased point again?
Sorry?
Could you explain the biased point again?
Bias point again, I mean, suppose you choose probably a subset which is probably very biased towards only one term, not all. So ideally this A should be in such a way that should scatter the need of, you can say, the variety of terms may appear in the query, right? So that's what I mean by the bias here. So ideally this, you can think of this A should be in such a way that it should have the document which basically cover all kind of or possible terms that you may see in the query. So that if you get any query, ideally it should be somehow covered here in this contender set that you are considering, rather than it should go into the whole set of document that you have. Does it answer your question?
Yes, sir.
So basically here, it does not necessarily contain the top K, but has probably many documents from among the top K. So this is what we are referring. So it may not be possible, it may have all, but at least it should be in such a way. I mean, we need to create this container set in such a way that it may probably have probably many documents from there, or at least similar to that. So we need, and finally, once you have that, you can return the top K document. So from it, so you can think of in that way. So now, rather than for a given query computing the cosine similarity for all document in n, you now have to just compute the cosine similarity of all the elements, all the documents in the set A, which is much smaller than probably the whole set of document. Once you compute the cosine similarity for all documents in A for a given query, you can simply select probably the K documents here and return as a response. So you can think it is like a pruning of non-contenders. So in a way, you're not going to return document which are probably not part of it. So you are kind of think of it like you're pruning the non-contender document. So the same approach is also used for other non-cosine or probably other scoring function that you have in order to basically find the top K document. So let's see how it works. So one possibility could be index elimination. So so basically the basic cosine computation algorithm only consider the document that at least one query term, right? So but in the query again, I mean, we may have number of query, that is first thing, and secondly, the basically the posting list that you have for a given query, that may be very long, right? How you are going to basically select queries, I mean select indexes which should be somehow giving you the approximate top K document which you may get in the ideal situation. So one possibility could be, how about you only consider the high IDF query terms, right? So if you recall, I mean, in information retrieval, we have discussed earlier, right? So IDF is one of the thing which highlight the rarity. So high IDF means it may be important basically the terms as compared to the query term which have less or probably the less IDF. So you can think of this heuristic as like, how about we only consider the high IDF query terms? Another thing you can do, like only consider the document containing many query terms. So for example, in your query term you have 4 terms, right? And so ideally, I mean, we need to have a document which probably have all 4 query terms, right? And if you're not probably having any document which having all 4 query terms, then probably we need to think for a document which may have 3 of the query terms and like that. So using this basically heuristic, you can basically reduce the search space where basically you need to perform the computation, cosine similarity or other ranking scoring methods. So high IDF query terms only. So as I said, so for example, the query is catcher in the ray, right? So basically, if you see here, the IDF for catcher and the ray will be probably much higher than as compared to the in and the, because in and the is very, very common words and may be probably available in all the possible documents, right? So their IDF will be low. So intuition is in the contribute little to the score. So don't alter rank ordering much. So we need to probably focus more on the catcher and the ray. So the benefit is posting of the low IDF terms may have the documents like these many, because since it's a low IDF, it may be probably appearing so many documents. So this posting list even will be very large, right? So if you get rid of all those, I mean, you're only having probably the high IDF, I mean the terms having high IDF, and their posting list will be even smaller as compared to the other. So in a way, the number of documents you need to consider for ranking will be significantly smaller as compared to this. So this basically help you in reducing, or you can say the pruning the cosine similarity that we wanted to do. Second thing, as I said, the documents containing many query terms. So as a human, as we know, right? So if most of the query terms appearing in the document, that may be the most relevant. If not, then probably. So we need to probably apply some kind of soft conjunction. Soft conjunction is mean if it is not possible to have all 4, how about 3? How about 2? And even if it is 2 is not possible, then probably we can go for 1. So in a way, we need to consider this multi-term queries. Only compute score for the documents containing the several of the query terms that you can define. While creating the set A, the contender set, you can define all those. Like, okay, so I'm going to only consider the document which have at least 50% of the query term, or probably 75% of the query terms, and so on. So look at this example, this will be clear to you. So for example, here we are putting a constraint. So at least 3 of the 4 query terms should be there. So given that these are the 4 query terms you have, and this is the posting list you have for the different query terms. Please tell me what will be the documents we need to consider in the contender set here. Any guess?
For 8 and 16.
So 8, you are right. 16, again, you are right. Anything else?
32.
Okay, so you are right as well. 32 as well. Any other document? So in a here, at least, I mean, you can see only these 3 documents are valid because they are coming in at least 3 of the, I mean, these documents having at least 3 of the query term. So in a way, now rather than computing the cosine similarity for all the possible documents, you only need to do the comparison was this all 3, right? What could be the issue in such cases? Any guess? Yeah, so one issue could be, suppose you want to return k number of documents, and the size of container set that you are determining will be smaller than that. Is it possible? right? So if this is the case and it happens, in that case, I mean, how you're going to deal with that? Because suppose you need to return key documents. If you're putting such a probably strict constraint, in that case it might be possible. So one possibility, as I said earlier, could be in that case you can relax this and probably consider 2 of the 4 query terms rather than 3 of. So in that case the additional documents will be added. So what will be the additional document? It could be 2, it could be 4, it could be 13, and so on, right? So in a way these additional documents will be further added, and you can return the top key documents for a given query. So in a way what you are doing here, in a way what you are doing here, so you are basically creating some kind of champion list. So champion list is basically what we are willing to do here. So we are pre-computing each dictionary term T for our documents of the highest weight, and that weight, I mean, you can determine many ways, right? So for example, it could be how good the document is, how many terms it has, and so on. So you can think of the different criteria to create this champion list. So call this champion list for T, and so it basically have the top documents for T. So one simple criteria could be, for this given term you can rank in order of term frequency, right? So in a way, I mean, you will basically keep only the R document having the highest weight. So as I said, the weight could be anything. It could be term frequency, it could be probably the weight, actual weight you can compute, it could be probably some other criteria. This will be the issue here again, which I was highlighting in the previous slide. So note that because this pre-computation, when you are doing this when you are creating the indexes, right? So note that R has to be chosen at the index build time. So it is possible that R is less than K, because the K is a parameter that is required at the query time, and R is the parameter which is required at the pre-computation, like this index building time. So it might be possible. In that case, how to deal with that? So it means, I mean, we need some ways in order to somehow deal with such case. So at query time, we only compute score for the documents in the champion list for a query term. So pick up the K top scoring documents among all those. So in that case, even despite the posting list, this for T is very long, you are only going to consider the top R documents from that list, and that will basically help you immensely in reducing the computation that is required for computing this cosine similarity for a given query in the document. So that is the idea of champion list is appears, and the people use it. So you can think of how you can basically implement an inverted index for that. I leave it this up to you, and you can probably think how you can do. So the next thing we want to discuss, so query independent document scores, because we have discussed that often you have the documents which of not same importance, right? So their quality is different. How you determine the how you can determine the quality of the different documents? Any guess? If you have to statically compute the scores of the different document, what are the criteria you can look at while determining the quality of the different documents? Any guess? So one thing you can look at, I mean, source, right? If the document is probably coming from authenticated source, or probably, for example, Wikipedia, you may probably rely more as compared to probably the document is coming from some Tom and Jerry person, right? Another thing could be, for example, we are talking about research paper, document as a research paper. A paper probably having the high citation, it means it has probably more, I mean, its quality is more as compared to just a simple archive that you have for probably the similar submission, right? So there are many ways you can, similarly, the page rank is something, I mean, the Google and probably other companies also use to determine what is the quality of the page, right? So in a way, basically, we can have some relevance that is indication of how good the quality, how good the basically the document is. So these are basically query independent property, because you are directly determining this from the document that you have. Depend on the source, depend on the author, depend on probably the what is the property of the probably the document, and so on, right? So if you rank document using this, in that case you can also prune the document. You can have some threshold. Okay, so I'm not going to probably consider the document whose quality is less than this number, if you're talking about quantitatively. So just like in this case, these some quantitative numbers, right? So for example, if you're dealing with research paper, you can say that I'm not going to consider the paper whose citation is less than 5. I mean, just example, right? Or you can any other quantitative number you can think of. Okay, so overall, whatever the quality you are computing, it should be at least greater than this given number. So you can model it like this. So assign to each document a query independent quality score between 0 to 1 to each document D, and you can denote this by say GD. So thus a quality like the number of citation scale into 0 to 1. So for example, if it has less than if it is probably less than 10 citation, you will give a score of 0. If it is probably 11 to 100 citation, you can give a score of 0.2, and so on. You can think of. So in this way, you can give the quality scores to different papers that you have. And similarly, you can probably do for all other type of documents based on the source, based on the author, based on other criteria that you have. And once you have this quality score, you can compute the net score for the given document for a given query, right? So for example, if you want to compute the net score for the document D for a given query, you simply add the GD, that is the quality of the document, plus the cosine similarity for the given query. And in this way, you can compute the two signals that you have and see whether the user is happy or not. Because the user want to have the quality document, so he'll be happy with this. User want to have relevant document for a given query, so user will be happy with this. And in this way, you can compute the net score. And once you have the net score, all the document that you have in the contender set, you can basically return the top K documents. So the top K by net score, the fast method is simply order all by GD, and once you have done, you can simply return the common ordering of the posting. So so here basically one thing can be done in order to get the top K documents. So you can concurrently travel query terms posting for different query terms you have, and you can compute the net score for all, right? So once you have the net score for all, you can basically have different posting. So you can compute the posting intersection, or probably you can also compute the cosine similarity for that, and find the top K by net score in this way. So why basically we need to order posting by GD? So since the quality is one of the very important thing, again, the quality can be determined many ways. So like in this case, one time bound application, the quality is measured by how fast you can determine the retry the document. So for example, a document probably stored near to you, or probably for example, the document in the cache, right? So you, in a way, I mean, you can basically if you rank the document in this order, like how much time it is required to traverse a particular document from the given posting list. So for any time bound application, you can quickly determine that and give that. So that's why the ordering under GD is basically help you in basically getting the documents based on your need. So be it in terms of quality, be it in terms of traversal time, be it in terms of other criteria you can think of. So basically, and it will basically in a way, it will help you basically the short of the computation score for all documents in the posting, because now you're not going to compute the cosine similarity or probably the net score for all documents in the posting list. You are going to compute that number only for top K GD top K documents whose GD is, or you can say the quality is high, or probably above some threshold. So you can combine basically the champion list using the GD order. So can combine the champion list with GD order by computing the TF-IDF, that is the weight, as well as the quality, and in this way you can get the highest R documents. And in this R documents you can finally select the top K documents if this R is bigger than K. If it is not, then probably you need to think of other ways in order to increase the number of documents here so that you can return the top K documents. So let's talk about next cluster pruning, because we want to basically reduce the computation and probably want to give the top K documents very close to the probably the top K document that you can get in real time. How you can do so? So here basically you can think of all the document that you have in your database is divided into different clusters, right? So here how the cluster pruning works. So it basically pick any suppose n is the number of whole documents you have. So you can randomly choose square root of n document, and you can call these are leaders. When you call it leaders, it's basically, I mean, for a given query terms, you first going to ask the leader. Okay, so I mean, do you think this query is similar to the document you represent? Because the leader here is basically the representation of, or you can say one of the way you can think of leader is the representation of all the document it has. It has the similarity at least up to some threshold with the set of document it has. So for example, here if you have the square root of n leaders, so for a given query term you simply have to compare with one of these query terms, right? One of the leaders that you have. So in a way, rather than now comparing for all n documents, you are only going to probably compare with root n documents, right? And in this way, you can, once found the leader, you can just compute the cosine similarity for the these basically the leader represent, and you can get this. So often for every other document, you can pre-compute these nearest neighbors while creating the index, and you can save at that time, so that at runtime when you receive the query, after finding the leader, you can simply get all those the document. So here basically you can think of, so document attached to a leader is, it's called followers. So on average you can think of every leader will have square root of n followers, right? So if you multiply, it will give it to n, that is the number of documents you have. Is this clear how we are planning to perform the cluster pruning? So the pre-processing is clear. Simply randomly choose square root of n, and so that every leader will have the square root of n number of followers. So how the processing will work, as I said earlier. So for a given query term q, find its nearest leader L. Once you find the nearest leader L, so seek the k nearest document from L. So L is the number of followers. I mean the whatever the followers this leader L has, and you can just return the top k document from there. So this is one of the visualization you can think of. So like in this case, you have the query term q. So what, and here basically you have probably n number of leaders, like this leader, this leader, this leader, this and this, and the remaining documents in that particular cluster is its followers. So what you will do, you will compute the similarity, or probably the distance, whatever you can think of, this query to the leader. So this you will compute this, and this and this. So I hope it is very clear what you will get as a leader. You will get this particular leader is the nearest leader that you can have, and once you have that, you can compute the top k document from the followers it has, and you can return that. So why use random sampling? Because it is fast, and probably the leaders reflect the data distribution they have, and they are basically the representation of all the followers they have. So in a way, I mean, you can get that. So general variant could be, what is the general variant? So because here what we have thought of, for a given query there will be one leader, but is it always the case? So for example, if this particular query is somewhere here, right? If this given query is somewhere here, how many leaders will it have? One possibility, you just select the closest one, but here the distance between probably the all three leaders are almost equal, right? Almost not too much different, right? So in that case, what will happen? In that case, you may consider more than one leader while getting the top K documents. Does it make sense? Does it make sense to have probably more than one leaders?
So here, like random sampling refers to that first random sampling where we select root and leaders. Okay.
Could you repeat, Venkatesh?
Sir, I was asking whether the random sampling here refers to like the first step, selecting the root and leaders.
So here basically the random sampling, we are mainly referring, we are dividing the whole document into probably n number of whatever the predefined number of clusters you want to think of. So here the random sampling refer to that. I mean, just select n square root of n, in this case the random number of documents, and once you have that, you just divide the rest of the documents that you have into these clusters.
Okay.
Yeah, so the two parameter I was referring to, so this is one of the very specific case, like for a given query there will be only one leader and you need to only consider the follower of that particular leader. So in a general variant, because the example I've given here, so if the query is somewhere here, I mean the distance will be almost similar, right? In that case it doesn't make sense to have only one leader. So a general variant could be, how about have each followers attached to more than one leaders. So right now one follower is only attached to one leader. So like in this case, this for example this follower is only attached to one. So for example, if this particular follower will be somewhere here, right? If this is somewhere here, this follower distance from this leader and this leader is almost same, right? In that case, it makes sense to probably have more than one leader, right? So this is the generality that we're talking about. So here basically each follower attached to more than one leader. So like in this case, B1 is equal to, for example, 3. So it will be connected to more than, it will be connected to 3 leaders it has. The same thing you can do for leader as well. So for a given query, rather than just finding one leader, how about we select more than one leaders? So like in this case, right now this query is only connected to only one leader. So if you recall the example I said here, if the query is here, it makes sense to probably have more than one leader. So using these two parameters, you can make this overall computation more accurate, I would say, but at the cost of additional computation, because by adding these parameters, you can think of earlier you are only dealing with one leader and its followers. Now you will be dealing with probably n number of leaders and their followers. So the contender set we are talking about will be increased accordingly, and you need to deal with that. So this is the general variant of that, and using this you can get the you can utilize the leader and follower network that you have in order to get the top K nearest document. So another thing you can think of, how about tiered indexes? So again, you need to recall the example when I said, so for example, the contender set you are able to generate. So for example, here the contender set you are able to generate here. So for example, this is the contender set where we have this leader and its followers. So you are going to compare the query with all the documents here. How about this number is smaller than the number of documents you want to return, right? In that case, it is probably not possible because you don't have the containers. So in a way, I mean, we need to somehow go beyond whatever the set we have, how you can do so. So how about having some kind of tiered indexes? So for example, you will have here the number of tiers for indexes. So first you look into the tier 1. If you are able to satisfy the need of all the document, that's good. If not, then go to probably tier 2. Again, if you're able to now fulfill the requirement, that's great. If not, then go to the tier 3 and so on. So I will show with an example how the tiered indexes are used, and that will help you basically to get the required number of documents. So for example, in this case, you can think of two tiers. One is the high, one is the low. So the high posting list basically basically the champion list, where basically all the documents have, for example, um, score above than some threshold. So again, that score could be in terms of GD we are talking about, the quality, it could be something else, or even could be idea. So when traversing the posting on a query, so only traversal will be done with the high list first. That is the high list where the different documents in the champion list will be covered. So if you get more than K documents, right, that's good, right? So simply just select the top K and stop. If not, then probably because you're not able to get the enough document, you need to probably go further. In that case, you can simply go to the probably the second list you have, that is the low list, and you get the remaining document from there. So this is the example of two tiers, but you can think of multiple tiers accordingly. So this is the tiered indexes. So suppose you have more than one tiered, so it could be first one will be the most important, last one will be the least important. You will go to the lower tiers only if you are not able to get enough document from the top tiers you have. As I said, you can rank them based on the quality. It could be other measure that you can think of. Since inverted index are broken into the tiers of decreasing importance, like GD, right? So you only need to probably cover the top K documents from the, for example, most important list that you have. So at a query time, use top tier unless it fails to yield the key document, and if so, drop to the lower list, and you can continue doing so until you get the required number of documents. So this is one visualization of the example. So this is the tier one. So every time you see, I mean, this is the query. So query having the 4 documents, 4 terms: auto, best, car, and insurance. Tier one, I mean, because these document 2 having the high quality for this term. So that's why you consider this. Is using basically this uh, document, which are sorted based on the GD, that is the quality of the documents, and accordingly you can get all the documents from here, make your container set, and compute the cosine similarity for the queries that you have, and return the top key documents. If your need is satisfied, that is the top document you want to return, that's great. If not, then simply go to the second tier, where basically you can get some additional documents, and accordingly you can go further and get probably additional documents. So in a way, you can impact the order posting. We want to probably compute score for document which having high score. So that could be in terms of term frequency, it could be quality, and so on. So how do we compute the scores in order to pick up top K? So there are two possibilities. So first is the early termination. You keep going into the list until you find the fixed number of R document that you're looking for, or probably threshold the quality, or you can say the weight of the document drops below some threshold. So one possibility is the early termination based on the two criteria that you have. Once you terminate, just get all the document that you find so far, compute the score and of this union of document that you get from the two list, and simply return it. Second possibility, IF order items. So as I said, I mean, the IDF is one of the most important way that you consider in case of information retrieval. So how about you rank them, order them based on the IDF? So look at them, the order of decreasing IDF, and high IDF terms likely to contribute more to the score. Sorry. So in this way, you can just get the elements from this particular list that you have created, and simply you can update the score contribution for each query term, stop if the documents relatively change, and so on. So it can apply to cosine or some other scores. So next is the safe ranking, because in a way, in the last few method that we have discussed is the example of non-safe ranking, right? So non-safe ranking can give you, and you can say the closer, or you can see the similar document as the top key document, but may not be the gives you the best the top key document. That is it cannot guarantee, right? But in some cases you need the guarantee for the same, for several reasons. So in that case, how you can do so? So for the safe ranking, what we can do, so when we output the top k documents, we need to have some proof that these are indeed the top k. And does this imply that we always have to compute all n cosines? So in that case, can we compute the top k documents without computing the cosine similarity for top n? So this is something, one of the paper has been proposed. This is one of the very popular paper. I strongly recommend you to go through and read it. The paper is efficient query evaluation using two-level retrieval process. So they use basically Venn scoring. So Venn is basically a weak end. So it's an instance of DAT. So if you recall, we discussed DAT and TAT. So DAT is basically document at a time, and TAT is the term at a time. So here basically based on the DAT. So the basic idea is you need to maintain a running threshold. So for example, the kth highest score computed so far. And in this way, basically you can prune on a number of documents for which you do not need to compute the cosine score. So let me show you with an example. I think that will be clear in that case. So here basically you need to have some kind of idea of something called a finger. So basically we have a finger at some document in the processing posting of each query term, and each finger moves only to the right to the larger document. So it's basically invariant to all documents lower than any finger and has been already processed. So it means that these documents are either pruned away or their cosine similarity is computed. So this will be clear by the following example. So don't worry if you did not understand. So for example, in this case, you can consider some upper bound, right? Suppose if your finger is here, it means either for all these documents you have computed its cosine similarity, or you can prune due to some reasons. So for example, here is only one term, so which is not making much sense, but this will make sense once you have more than one term in the query. So let me show with an example. So for example, the query is catcher in the ray. So here basically right now finger here on the catcher is document 273. So these are basically the document IDs like 273, 304, 589, and 762. And this posting list, as we have used earlier, are sorted in the increasing order of the document ID. So now you have the catcher, you have the ray, you have the in and the. So right now, suppose your pivot, the fingers is here, right? So pivot is basically indicating where basically you are looking at. So for example, if you're looking at 589, right? So if you are looking at 589 and you want to probably have a document which have probably the catcher as well as the ray and so on. So in this case, you may probably think of skipping these documents in between, right? Because once you are looking at this, these documents is something is not you need to required to look at. So it basically the term sorted in order of finger position. So you simply need to now move your finger here and probably 301 to here. So in this way, basically you can skip out some of the documents, and you do not need to compute the cosine similarity for all those. So in this way, now it is moved to 589 for all. Now this next is 762, and again you can move again, pivot again, and accordingly you can skip, or at least you can perform the safe ranking without probably computing the cosine similarity for all documents. So I recommend reading this paper. This is a very interesting paper to have a look. And probably the last part I want to go in the last 5 minutes. So in the it's a summary of this paper. So one leads to 90% reduction in the score computation. So better gains on longer queries. So basically they also give us the safe ranking, and you can basically compute the scoring by additive the terms of different terms that you have in the query. So last part is finishing touches for a complete scoring system, because once you are building a complete scoring system, you need to consider the proximity. So for example, as a user, because as a user we want to have free text queries, like just like in the common way, you want to type some of the query terms. and probably want to have results for that, right? So user basically prefer the documents in which the query terms occur within the close proximity of each other. For example, if I type a basically query, mercy is not strained, right? So if this is the query, I want to have a document which is probably having these terms almost similar order, or probably the same phrase, or probably around each other, rather than first paragraph is mercy, having mercy, probably the second last paragraph having is not, and probably the last paragraph having strain. So they are very, very far away, and that may not be that much relevant. So probably I prefer a document which have the mercy is not strained as a phrase, probably altogether. So this is something called proximity. Proximity, I mean, it means, I mean, how close or how tightly coupled they are, similar to the query. So user prefers a document in which query terms occur within the close proximity to each other. So let W be the smallest window in the document containing all these query terms. So here basically the window you're talking about. So where basically all these or all the query terms are coupled in, right? So like in this case, for the query strained mercy, the smallest window is in the document is 4, because the mercy and the strain are contained within these particular window of length 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So that is the 4 words we are talking about. And so it means it will be probably similar or probably the closer document for this given 20. So this is something, I mean, we need to consider. So how you can perform it? So you can basically perform a query parser. So free text query from the user that you have. So that's span over more than one query. So for example, what you can do, you can divide the query, into smaller phrases. If it is not possible to probably have, it is not probably possible to probably have the uh, uh, if it is not possible to probably get the document for the whole phrase. So for example, run a query as a phrase query. If the number of documents is less than the key document that you want to find, then run the query again by two phrase query, that is the splitting the queries. So for example, here the rising interest rate. So first you get basically the all document having rising interest rate as a phrase, that is the proximity is 3 at the moment we're talking about, right? And you look into the basically the all the documents. If you are able to get enough document, that's great. If not, then probably we need to relax the condition. So in case of relaxing condition, so how about we just consider rising interest, or probably the interest rate. So this is something we have mentioned here, and in this way you can probably get more document, do the matching, and get the thing. So you can continue doing until either you have some threshold, like you don't go less than that, or probably you get the required number of documents. So last part is aggregate score, because we discuss about a number of things here. We discuss about static quality, like what is the quality of the document and so on. We discuss about the cosine similarity, how close it is to the similar, how close it is to the query document. We just discuss about the proximity, like whether the word used in the query is contained within some window or not. So using this, I mean, you have probably different components, different small, you can say the scores for the query and the document. Ideally, we need to combine them, aggregate them. So how do you combine them? One simple thing, you just simply add them. Is there any way interesting thing you can think of? So that is using, you can think of probably some machine learning based methods to probably combine them in a better way. So this is the last slide of today's class. So here basically we are putting all together. So you have the different document, you need to perform probably the parsing, linguistic processing, and so on. So using that, you can basically do some indexer, and you can probably have, you can document some, you can cache some documents. Similarly, if you have suppose user queries, so that is can be basically parsed into the free text. You can get the different terms, and in a way you want to do some kind of comparison for basically the different terms you have, and using some scoring or ranking function, you can basically result the page. So here basically for scoring parameter, we discuss about B1, B2, and so on, or probably other parameters. You can also use some kind of machine learning methods to rank the different documents. So in a way, this is putting all together the as a system. Suppose if you need to speed up this process, how you can basically just consider, say, inexact top K retrieval, because exact top K retrieval takes time, right? So in order to do so, you can just consider inexact top K retrieval and you can get it done. So we have also discussed about tiered inverted positional index. So first look into the top tier, then probably if you have enough document, that's good. If not, then you can go to the lower tier and so on. So accordingly, you can altogether get the required document closer to the absolute top K document for a given query. So with this, we are ending here. Any questions before we end the lecture? Okay, so this seems everyone is okay. Okay, so in that case, let me stop sharing my screen. Okay, so who will be presenting today?
So group number 35.
Shreya.
Shreya, right, sir.
Okay, so Shreya, I made you co-host. Please share your screen. Who's the next group?
Group number 8, sir.
Should I make you co-host, VK?
No, sir. Make Nipun Jain as a co-host.
Nipun. Okay, so Nipun, I made Nipun as a co-host. Who's the last group? Third group?
Sir, group number 3.
Shivani?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Shivani, you can go with that. Okay, so Harshita, please get started. Shreya.
Okay, am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everyone. We, the members of Group 35, Harshita, Shreya, Somam, and myself, Sakshi, are going to present over the topic Automated Talent Recruitment System. Next. Okay, so recruiting a suitable candidate for a job is always a tiresome process involving multiple rounds of screening. Moreover, the pandemic has changed the traditional ways of recruitment as everything is online now. Thus, we aim to tackle this challenge by means of an automated talent recruitment system, which will automate resume screening and help organization find a set of probable candidates in lesser amount of time. Next. So the motivation behind our proposed system is that, as you can see, due to pandemic, many people have lost their jobs, and as you can see from the LinkedIn post, that they were actively seeking for jobs. Moreover, as you can see from your right, that SDG has depicted that not only formal as well as informal economy has suffered a loss due to pandemic, and this was one of the worst economic recession, and thus they are focusing on providing a full and productive employment to the people. Next. Here are some of the existing systems such as LinkedIn, Turbo Hire, which help people to find jobs. Next.
Yeah, so this is the list of existing systems which already have an talent recruitment system such as Talent Lift, LinkedIn, Big Biller recruiting software, and Turbo Hire. Now, uh, now I would like to emphasize our motive behind this topic by presenting the top 5 coronavirus challenges for recruiters, which are hiring budget cuts, firing instead of hiring, high volume hiring freeze, and difficulties finding jobs, and also recruitment digitization. Talent Lift mentioned that these are the major challenges faced by recruiters during the pandemic. Among these, recruitment digitization and also difficulties in filling jobs are the major ones. After research, we found that several researchers indicate that 49% organizations were considering layoffs due to the current pandemic situation. So it is important to tackle this problem through some automation techniques. So we will now I'd like to present the limitations of existing system from both the recruiter's point of view as well as from the user's point of view. So coming to the recruiter's point of view, We know that when a candidate switches between companies, then he or she has to serve a notice period. This creates a deadlock between the two, which does not help both even the recruiter or the user. Secondly, filtering uninterested candidates may lead to wastage of time as well as resources for the company. So the recruiter must not face these difficulties. Coming to the user's point of view, as we all know that LinkedIn provides a suitable platform in which the user can write his or her posts to express the job needs for or urgent job, or if he or she requires an urgent job. But in times of crisis, we have seen numerous LinkedIn posts, but LinkedIn does not provide a plausible solution to help the user even if the user repost any number of times. The second thing is, there is no reasonable online platform available for the non-technical candidates. Now Harshita will introduce you to our proposed model.
So, keeping in mind the shortcomings of the existing system as well as the post-pandemic scenario, we have proposed our system in such a way that it will be beneficial for both the recruiter and the candidates. We are proposing an automated talent recruitment system. The primary focus of our proposed system is the recruitment process in the post-pandemic world. The system is capable of assisting people involved on both the sides of the recruitment process, the job applicants as well as the recruiters. Automated system not only increase the efficiency but also improve the quality of the company hiring effort. It also benefits the candidate as the candidate experience a streamlined process, gets faster responses and do not have to wait as long as for the hiring decision. Our system is a step forward from the traditional system as the recruitment is automated by scraping the social media post, then ranking the relevant candidates on the basis of the job description, urgency, and the skill set. Okay, next. So the features offered by our proposed systems are the features offered from the user sides, the candidate sides are the candidates can upload their resume so that it can be further processed by the recruiter side. Also, the candidate can write the post related to the job requirement in the multiple threads or spaces so that it gets noticed by the relevant jobs. The second is the system is capable of analyzing the user's post while writing and suggesting the users with some relevant and trending hashtags associated with the post to make it more reachable to the recruiter. And the third is the system then can retrieve the different posts with the tags such as COVID, COVID-19, looking for job, etc., so that the post reaches the recruiter easily because of the ranking model. Now the features offered from the recruiter sides. The recruiting company can provide the job description, the number of vacancies, and other important and relevant information related to the job in the system. The second is the system then takes all the information like skill set required, job description, urgency of job, and relevant post from the different threads and spaces, and then generates a weighted score and then gives a ranked list of the candidates, thereby decreasing the time required in screening and searching from the thousands of the candidates. Next. Okay, now I'll talk about the novelty of our system. So the primary focus of our system is to provide effective assistance to the job seekers and the recruiters in the recent pandemic situation. The system will help in increasing the reachability as in existing system, many of the job seekers who are in the urgent need of the job are left unheard. Our system helps with the candidate to get better connection and reachability. Secondly, the system tends to prioritize the candidates who are adversely affected in the pandemic situation, also keeping in mind the skill matching as the part of the process. The third is the system searches the system searches are based on context aware decision, hence improving the search results and increasing the relevancy. So now Somam will explain about the model's flow diagram and the working of the model.
Yeah, so till now my friend Harshita and Shreya has already mentioned about what our model is doing. So I till now I guess it's like clear that besides what LinkedIn is doing for us, we are building on top of it that in the current time of crisis, we are trying to build a system which will scrape the post from various social media platforms and try to determine the urgency of the job that the person requires. Because many a times it happens, as per LinkedIn, they have mentioned that the probability or likelihood of a person getting a job and after that accepting the offer is often a time less. So LinkedIn people try to maximize that likelihood. So in that case, if we are able to do any average weighting, taking into consideration the urgency of the job required as a parameter, in that case it will be very beneficial from the recruiter point of sight. So here in the flow diagram, as you can see, that there are two parties over here. One is the candidate side and here is the recruiter side. So our model will focus on both the side and how will it be beneficial for both the sides. So as any normal platform, the candidate will obviously upload a resume in the platform. But what will our platform do it for them? All the various natural language normal postings they have done, it will scrape from various social media posts, and it will on the basis of the post, it will do a thread classification and it will classify it as per it. Like for example, say if a person belongs from DevOps, if a person belongs from human computer interaction, if a person belongs from MLAI, so the post will be bifurcated into various threads. Because if we don't do it, as in a class it was today mentioned, the primary focus is to reduce the search space. So what does a thread classification over here do? It reduces the search space for the recruiters, so it will be easier for them. After that, hashtags will be generated by doing some sentimental analysis, like whether he has laid off from the company or recent pandemic has affected his job or not. So that kind of hashtags will be generated, and also his skill-based hashtags, like depending on what is the past experience he's having, that kind of hashtags will be generated. Similarly, the recruiter, from recruiter side, he will provide a job description in natural language, and that will be converted to the structured query formulation, and it will give us a structured requirement for that particular JD, for that particular job description, and accordingly their hashtags will also be generated. Now a matching will be done, and as per it, a rank list will be generated by the sentimental analysis and taking into consideration of the urgency factor. And we will also take into consideration the traditional LinkedIn retrieval model, due to which another skill-based rank list will be generated. And after that, we will do an intersection of that to get the final rank list. Fine, can we move on to the next slide? Yeah, so what is the feasibility of the proposed system? So for short term, you may say the pandemic is like, for say it's short-lived, but now we are quite sure that this is not for short term, and it will keep on coming in some way or the other. It will hit other domains, maybe not the whole domain like COVID did, but it may affect the tourism sector. After some years, it may affect the finance sector. So we have to be ready for such kind of scenarios. So for short term, we are thinking of leveraging the various social media platforms in this times of crisis and provide end-to-end web-based online recruitment platform on the top of LinkedIn sorts of things. But there is a thing which we need to think, is that all those techie people, they are generally active on LinkedIn. We do not see non-technical people like this, plumbers, carpenters, blacksmiths, waiters. They have also lost their jobs, right? So what about those? So they have agencies, but they have offline agencies, due to which the cut money they have to provide is quite a huge. But since our model will be very much scalable, so the commission could be highly reduced down to like say 0.01%. That will be beneficial for them as well as for the company side, right? So, and in the long term, what I can think is that, being a computer vision researcher myself, what I can think is that in the long term, like the auditions that it does not depend on crisis. Like if we think out of this pandemic situation, there are situations like if people are giving auditions for any film, or like say Indian Idol or something like DID or that sort of thing, people has to wait a lot. Or nowadays the thing has come, like you do a video of yourself and then you send it, and our judges will judge it whether it's good or bad. So what if we can
So sorry
formulate?
to interrupt. I think we need to wrap it up because we are running out
Yes,
of
last
time.
slide. This is the last slide. We are done. Yeah.
So
So
okay, so thanks. So this is the conclusion. Meanwhile, any questions?
so that's
Okay, so there is a question from Shubham. So I request probably the group to respond over the chat since we're running out of time. So who's the next group? Please share your screen. Others, if you have question from the previous presentation, please ask in the chat. Thanks.
Hello everyone. We are group number 8, and we have made a web application on the study and answer for class 11th and 12th. We have 5 group members named Aman Kumar, Harman Singh, Vipul Kesri, that is itself me, Avinav Jha, and Nipun Jain. Avinav, Nipun, next slide. Yeah. Our problem statement is that like secondary and senior secondary science students feel concerned about their productivity and exam preparation, as they can't plan and follow a good schedule with relevant study techniques due to improper study routine, lack of curated study resources, improper breaks in between study hours. That's why they got many kind of problems. So we are just going to solve all those problems by our application. Nipun, next slide. Yeah, our motivation was like the need for practice in the hour and the inefficiency of time created when having to search for books to look for practice questions and cross-checking answers creates a time lag where accumulation would waste time and create holes for distractions. So basically, we are just going to overthrow all those things by our application, and we are just trying to make this so that different students will feel very comfortable while using the digital tools so that they can have the different kind of things easily. Next slide. Avinava?
So what we have planned is that primary approach is to build a test generator. Okay, so we'll collect various questions from NCRT or other textbooks, etc. So as in a way to, how should I say, assess students' performance by either conducting multiple choice quizzes or subjective quizzes, and from where we obtain the results to on a graph or other data to plot the strengths and weaknesses. And accordingly, what we would do is that with those strengths and weaknesses, we would actually prepare a form of a timetable where students can pursue a certain amount of time will be allocated for students to polish their strengths, and lots of recommendation of videos or lectures for students to assess and rework on their weaknesses. Next slide. So the basic plan we have right now is using the YouTube recommendation system, given a lot of YouTube videos have been released regarding NCRT questions or the exam questions. And so what we trying to do is build a smart AI that will at least link with the question that is being asked in the quiz and with the related video, which would help them understand the question and solve it accordingly. And regarding its feasibility, since it involves quite a lot of computation if you were to go beyond the current details, and it would take around 1 to 2 years to fully achieve it.
Yes, there exist different kind. Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, you.
Yes, there exist different types of test generators like Unacademy, Testmode, and Quilons, but where student can give the different types of mock test and get the analyzed test report. So, but they do not recommend the YouTube videos on the analyzed test report by which the student can improve their weak concept. So here our plan is to recommend the top YouTube videos so student can improve their weak concepts and score good marks. So by combining these fields together, where the student get more benefits from the technology purposes. Next.
Everyone, the first one is we are proposing idea-based system. We not need a human system at all. With everything that has been going on our busy lives, it's been easy for science students to forget about the oncoming technological so as automation task user, you could be communication system can help science students to improve their grades and work. The second point is all science students would need to do is to learn solve science facts to the system. AI can help to remove teacher schedule of repetitive administrative tasks, not to mention boost efficiency across and exhaustive areas such as due to the communication system task scheduling, visualization of the data and broadcast generator. We can add AI which can assist students for the future. Students can help to communicate with another students and can do anytime quiz and students can find their weakness so that science students can improve his marks and can talk to teacher about his weakness. Any questions?
Yeah, does anyone have any question? Then they can ask from us.
Any questions? So what are the AI techniques that you are planning to use for this you mentioned?
So currently we are just going to work on the machine learning things and different tools which we have.
So meanwhile, next group, please share your screen. Yeah, please continue.
And so basically we are planning like if we just work on this for the like more than the given time, like after the semester, then we can just make all those things possible. So currently we are just working on the simple things.
ठीक है, got it. Okay, so please start Atul, Akansha, Prashant, Shivani.
Good morning, everyone. We are group 3, and our topic for today's presentation is facial information extraction for video conferencing. We'll try to keep it short. Next slide, Shivani. Okay, so one thing that hit all of us in the similar way after the COVID happened was that various video conferencing platforms took center stage in our lives. It became almost a ritual to wake up and sit in front of a system and watch somebody teach or perform through various apps such as platforms such as Google Meet or Zoom Meet. However, one thing that we all would agree we faced was that it requires a lot of bandwidth, and often the video quality is not up to the mark. As a result of which, the user base, a lot of users who cannot afford higher bandwidth often do not get to use such platforms. And that is where the problem lies. So the food for the thought is, can we apply basic information extraction techniques and make it better instead of just video transmission happening in the present existing systems? So next slide, Shivani. So some of the famous existing systems, as you all must be aware of, includes Google Meet, Zoom, Skype, Cisco WebEx. So all these systems use very similar traditional compression algorithms, such as I mentioned, H264, H265. So for example, in H.264, video stream is given as an input. It is transformed, then encoded, and it's then either transmitted or stored, where after which it is decoded, and then inverse transformation takes place, and finally it is given as an output stream after it has been reconstructed. However, whenever in any video conferencing platform, the video is being transmitted, there is no way or no procedure where we can just extract certain useful information instead of actually transmitting the whole video. And perhaps that is where the more work needs to be done. And we all know that as more and more people join a particular meet on a particular platform, let's say for example Google Meet, the bandwidth usage scales linearly with it. So now my friend Shivani would like to tell you what is the new work happening in this particular domain.
Good morning, everyone. So they proposed a video conferencing platform which is based on facial information extraction. It eliminates the frequent data loss that we usually see in our existing system, like Google Meet and in Zoom. And it will also provide the benefit of using 50 times less bandwidth comparatively Zoom and Meet. And one prototype is also available right now, which is designed and made by NVIDIA, which demonstrates all the proposed functionality. For example, video reconstruction is done just by giving one image and some driving videos, which contain the talking heads to the system. The image here shows that they are extracting information like how the head is moving over time and how the expression changes. So the technique takes first image, reads the evolution of expression and then head movements from the input video, and then discards all the video and save for the first image and give the rotated image as output in the end. And the here the left image shows the bitrate of the video generated by NVIDIA's prototype, which was 2.44 times less than the right image, which was generated by H.264 compression, which is using the format of MP4. Then also NVIDIA's prototype gives better result. So if we give equal bitrate to both the videos, then H.264 always gives worse result than the NVIDIA's prototype. Here also we can see from the diagram that the model used the left original image to extract the facial information, and then the right image was reconstructed by using those information. And we clearly see that there is minimal information loss in doing so, but we can also see some of the small differences, for example, in eyebrows and earring colors and so on. Now the limitation part will be carried out by Prashant.
So the system takes the first image as a user of the user as input, so which is the basis for the whole reconstructed video. So if the first image is not good or distorted, the whole reconstructed video will also be of poor quality. And some of the reconstructed video of faces look like face masks. Hence, more work needs to be done on pre-processing of facial features like eyebrows and face expression while the person is talking throughout the video to make it more real. Since the since the reconstructed video cannot detect face expression, it may reduce the essence of the information that the user needs to pass. Also, sometimes head movements in the video look like non-human movement. They are just random movements, which reduces the quality of the video. So to overcome these limitations, we have added some extra features to our design, which will be presented by Akanksha.
Novelty part. So when you are in a conference call, position of camera makes eye contact difficult because usually people look at the screen instead of camera. We can include eye tracking feature to identify which participant speaker is speaking to simulate a direct eye contact between the user. And secondly, since non-verbal communication is also very important and these models only provide features for head, we can use deep neural network and AI techniques to also include and simulate hand and body movements to make it look more interactive for the user. And for the feasibility part, this is easily feasible in 4 to 5 years as the demand due to COVID-19 is increasing very rapidly. Next. Future application. It would be very useful in video conferencing platforms like Zoom, Google Meet in areas with slow internet. But this technology can not only be used for video conferencing, it can have many applications. For example, imagine watching a movie of 2 to 3 GB in 300 MB without sacrificing on video quality. Right now, this technology only supports a single face in a frame, but we can also expand it to multiple faces in a single frame. It can also be used in online classes, as many students have concerns during proctored examinations that their call will drop if they open their camera. This can help in this scenario also. So since it is the first iteration, there is a lot of work that needs to be done in this domain, especially during the time like this when we all depend on internet and video conferencing for our studies and work. Next. This is the link of the paper. This is very interesting proposal by NVIDIA, which was presented in CVPR 21. You can read it. It explains a lot on this topic, and you can also watch a short video explaining this paper. Next, thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Akanksha, Atul, Shivani, and members. Okay, so thanks. Any question from the audience?
Yes.
Yeah, Rahul, please go ahead.
So your system will work if the images are non-human, like the object is some bottle, chair, table.
No, it is one of the disadvantage of this proposal.
Right now, this is not for non-human objects, but we can expand it. Like for in near future, we can expand it to that also.
So does your system needs to recognize the face before going ahead?
See, actually, what it does is it take first frame and it extract the image from that frame. So it will like see the face of the person and then do that everything else. So it will recognize that person, like not recognize, but it will extract the feature of the face.
Like what I'm saying is, like say, initially I am talking, but after some time, from my side, a group of people are talking. So there can be multiple faces after some time. So will your system work here?
So in the limitation part, like I said that in future work also, like we can expand it to multiple people in a single frame. Right now it's a new technology, so it only support one person in a single frame.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? So can you envision, I mean, what are the changes are required to make it work on, I mean, non-human faces or objects?
Sir, it is NVIDIA's internal project, so they have not mentioned these things, and there are many things they have not mentioned as it is not open source project.
No, but the paper is there, right? You mentioned.
Yes, sir. Only prototype is available now. It is not in use.
I mean, is the details not given in the the research
Yes,
paper?
yes, sir.
That
So, but like we can use, for example, when we are doing it for face, we can do same thing with an object. Just a few technical things will be different. Like when we are in a face, we are extracting features like eyes and nose for like bottles, chairs, and tables. We have to do some object recognition thing, and then we can use them, use it for that also.
okay. Any other questions from others? Okay, if not, then thank you so much and take care. Bye.
Thank you, sir.